Please give a huge warm welcome to Norman.
Oh, don't worry, by the way, I'm not going to do an amazing magic trick. But this little piece of rope has quite a significance. Many years ago, I was into rock climbing. The steeper the better. Almost every weekend I was out into the mountains, Peak District, and one of my favourite areas was climbing on the sea cliffs at Pembroke. I want you to imagine absolutely vertical, clean limestone rising from the sea, and it's flat at the top. However, the only way to get to many of the routes that I wanted to climb is via an abseil off the top. You've got the sea crashing below. Well, it wasn't crashing this day. It was kind of just lapping against the bottom of the cliff. But even so, you've got water below. So it adds a little bit of extra excitement to the routes. About 20 years ago, me and a few friends, we drove down to Pembroke with a view to climbing a couple of routes on these sea cliffs. Now, when we arrived at the route that we were planning to do, there were some climbers already there. And they'd got an abseil rope already attached. There's some ground anchors, some big long stakes that are hammered into the ground all along the cliff tops for climbing and abseiling. And they're very safe. They're probably 3 or 4 feet long, hammered into the ground, so there's no way they would come out. And in any case, whenever you're abseiling, you always try to put at least 2 anchor points. So the rope was attached to a couple of these anchors. The guys that were there already said, feel free to use our rope. It looked a new rope, it looked fine. The one guy was much bigger than me, so I figured if it'll hold his weight, I should be fine. So I proceeded to get kitted up, harness on, got all my climbing gear, rope on my back, looking over the edge, thinking, oh, it's a long way down. It's absolutely vertical, probably about 120 feet. Now, I've abseiled many, many times, hundreds of times in fact. So I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm pretty confident. However, I don't like abseiling. To me, it's just a means to an end. When I climb, I get to the top and I often abseil down to get back down. Or if I'm starting at the top, I abseil down and then climb back up. But on this particular day, things were not going to go exactly to plan. So as I started to lower myself over the edge, I was still feeling pretty confident. Rope seemed fine. Just give it an extra little tug. Yep, everything's fine. And as I started to lower over the edge, my climbing partner put a rucksack just on the edge, just to protect the rope. Well, it wasn't our rope, so he figured, protect it as best we can. So I started lowering over the edge, and I was probably just a couple of feet over the edge, just putting my tension on the rope, when suddenly the rope went loose. Immediate panic, as you can imagine. My worst fears, I thought, oh dear, this is it. Without even thinking, the adrenaline kicks in, and I'm trying to grab for something solid. I started to lose my grip, and then started tumbling backwards. Can you imagine the feeling of falling backwards from 150 feet up with the sea below? Scary thought. But this little piece of rope makes an excellent safety device when you're abseiling. Can anybody guess where this was on that particular day? It was actually in my rucksack. I was so confident abseiling that I just didn't bother to use a safety backup. Had I used this, I would have dropped a foot or so and been secure. But on that particular day, once I'd started falling, there was no stopping. Falling backwards from 150 feet. I hit the water pretty hard. I went down a long way. Fortunately, the tide was in. I could see the surface of the water. It seemed miles away as I swam back to the surface. But had I used this little piece of rope, it would have saved a very, very rapid descent where I broke a couple of ribs and had many sleepless nights afterwards. So the moral of the story is, if you've got safety equipment, always use it. Thank you.